Welcome back. This is chapter 4, the ashes that made trees bloom. And now I'm going to explain passage number 4 to you. So here we go. That night, the spirit of the dog appeared to him in a dream and said, "Cut down the pine tree over my grave and make from it a mortar for your rice pastry and a mill for your bean sauce." Okay, so that night, that very night, when he went to the grave and did everything as mentioned above. So that very night, the same night, the spirit of the dog appeared in the dream of the old man. And after that dream, in that dream, the dog, the dead dog, said to him to asked him to cut down the pine tree over his grave, there near his grave. And then, with the wood of that pine tree, he asked them to make a mortar for the rice pastry and a mill for the bean sauce. So the spirit of the dog asked the old farmer, to cut the pine tree near his grave, and with the log of wood, he asked them to make mortar for rice pastry and mill for the bean sauce. Let's see what happened next. So the old man chopped down the tree and cut out of the middle of the trunk a section about 2 feet long. So next morning, he went there and he cut down the pine tree, and from the middle portion of the log, which was quite thick, from there he cut a section, a piece of log which was 2 feet long. With great labor, partly by fire, partly by chisel, he scraped out a hollow place as big as a small bowl. So after cutting out that 2 feet long portion from the middle of the log, he used fire and chisel. Two things. Chisel is an instrument used by the carpenter and those who make sculptures. So with the help of that chisel, it is used to carve out a thing, or used to give shape to a particular thing, whether wooden or stone or some other. So with the help of fire and with the help of chisel, he carved out. He removed from the middle portion, from the middle of it, the upper flat part of the log. He carved out a hole as big as a small bowl. He then made a long-handled hammer of wood, and next thing he did was made a long-handled hammer of wood. Then he made a hammer of wood, such as is used for pounding rice, as was found in the olden times, that was used to pound rice, to grind it, to turn it into powder. When the New Year's time drew near, he wished to make some rice pastry, and it was now the New Year's time. That is, it was around about, say, 25th of December, about that time it was, and then he decided to make rice pastry. When the rice was all boiled, Granny put it into the mortar. So when the rice was all boiled, first they boiled the rice, and then the granny, that is his wife, put the boiled rice into the mortar, and the old man lifted his hammer to pound the mass into dough, and then he lifted, that was, the boiled rice was put into the bowl, and then the old man used his hammer to turn it into a paste, turn it into a dough. Okay, so, and the blows fell heavy and fast till the pastry was all ready for baking, and then the hammer fell repeatedly and heavily on that bowl, and that quickly turned it into a dough, and it was ready for baking. Suddenly, the whole mass turned into a heap of gold coins, and suddenly, as that was turned into a dough, a paste, you can say, suddenly they found that the paste, or that mass of rice paste, turned into gold coins. When the old woman took the hand mill, after that it was the turn of old woman, and she was to get the sauce. So when the old woman took the hand mill and filling it with beans began to grind, the gold dropped like rain. And when she was ready, she filled it with beans and started to turn the handle. Suddenly what she found, that the drops falling from it fell like drops of gold dropping like rain. That is, the drops that fell were the drops of gold, not drops of liquid. Meanwhile, the envious neighbor peeped in at the window when the boiled beans were being ground, and in the meantime, the envious, the jealous neighbor peeped in. That is, he was secretly following the couple over grinding the rice and turning that into paste. So as he was following secretly, so he found the whole thing turning into gold. "Goody me," cried the old hag, as she saw each dripping of sauce turning into yellow gold. And so the wicked farmer's wife was following the good farmer's wife, and as she was spinning or turning the handle of the mill, and from the mouth of that mill was flowing the juice, she found that juice was turning into the yellow gold, until in a few minutes the tub under the mill was full of shining mass of gold, and until in a few minutes, that is within a few minutes, the tub that was placed under the mill got covered, filled with the shining mass of gold. And she was so surprised seeing all that happening. So the old couple were rich again, and as they got so much of gold again, so they were rich once more. The next day, the stingy and wicked neighbor came and borrowed the mortar and the magic mill. The next morning, the farmer, that is the wicked farmer, and his wife, they came to him and they borrowed the mortar and the magic mill from them. What is said about them? These two, that is the wicked farmer and his wife, they were stingy, very tight-fisted. They were not at all generous. Now, they filled one with boiled rice and the other with beans. So, taking those things home, they filled the mortar with boiled rice and the mill with the beans. With the beans, yes. Um, then the old man began to pound and the woman to grind, and then both of them started to do their work. That is, the old man started to pound the boiled rice, and the woman started to grind the beans. But at the first blow and turn, the pastry and sauce turned into a foul mass of worms, and just at the first blow and first turning of the handle, say, or they turn into a foul mass of worms. Just at the first blow and first turn, things turned into foul mass of worms, mass of insects, giving very bad smell. Still more angry at this, they chopped the mill into pieces to use as firewood, and as they became even angrier, they were angry the first time when the dog took them to carcass, and so they were angry at that time. And this time, as these things, mortar and the mill, gave them worms, so they were even angrier. This time they got more angry than previously, and this time they chopped the mill into pieces, and that is the pieces of the mill were now used by them as firewood. Thank you for now.